Good evening and welcome. I have 35 slides that I need to cover in 15 minutes. So we'll go through this really fast. No, I don't. It's just a misnomer. 2026 actually marks the 50th year or 50th anniversary of SAS as a company. So in many ways, you could say we saw it right at the beginning when data was just about being generated. And sir, we have seen the Schultz calculator too, the first calculator that had a printout that used to come out, to now to the world of AI and Agentic. Now, there's a reason why we are very, very excited about Agentic AI. And in a person's lifetime, there are these pivotal technology disruptions that happen. If you're lucky, you will have one. If you're really lucky, you will have two, right? And here in this room, I can see at least people will have two. The first one was the late 90s with the onset of the internet, right? That was a pivotal movement. Anything that we have today was because of a lot of the things that came out, the technologies that came out with the discovery, with the invention of the internet. We are in that cusp right now with AI. And not only just AI, AI has multiple applications right now. So, Gen AI is one piece of it. Agentic AI is another piece of it. SAS is also working on areas like quantum AI. Although I'll not be covering quantum AI right now, but it promises to have just incredible capabilities in terms of solving problems that hitherto could not be solved. But let's get back to Agentic AI. And Agentic AI for us is a lot around decision intelligence. And how do companies who are able to make those decisions, move those decisions into an advantage for them, right? And that's what we're going to cover in the next 15 minutes or so. So Gautam mentioned a little while back about human in the loop and human out of the loop. And we do believe that this is a critical function of Agentic AI. And the reason I'm saying this is because SAS is known to be in a very, we provide software to regulated markets. So whether it's banking and financial services, it's health and life sciences, it's government and defense infrastructure, for instance. These are all very, very regulated markets. And out there, ethics, governance, explanation, explainability become incredibly important for us. And that's why human in the loop and human out of the loop holds that much more importance. So let's look at an example of a human out of the loop, right? Which is essentially you have a scenario where you're doing a credit decisioning, right? And you have models that are running that actually go ahead and do the decisioning pieces in there. But if you do get an error, for instance, or a rejection, then you can't just pass that rejection on and just continue on, right? So it has to go into some kind of a human in the loop where the decision then takes place with greater scrutiny as to why this decision was actually made. So for us, Agentic AI, for SAS, Agentic AI spans the entire value chain all the way from data to actually making that decision. And more importantly then, orchestrating all of those decisions. And we'll see how that actually plays out in here, right? So we believe that once you build those decisions, right, you can then deploy those decisions as part of an agents, an intelligent agents. And these agents then can be called by APIs, right? So that it can spread through the organization. And I'll sort of walk you through a very quick demo around it, right? And this is a classic. I'll try to see if I can get it from here. This is a classic loan application overview dashboard, right? Which is what you see out here, right? And in this loan application overview, you're seeing the total number of applications, how many of them are pending review, how many of them are approved, and how many of them are flagged for attention. But what you see below here is this lady out here who is a VIP, but she is being flagged for attention, or her loan's not been approved and she's in the queue, and she's been in the queue for almost 3 days. So now the question is, let's look at why this is happening, and this is the explainability part of it. So here is where you can actually speak to an AI agent and saying, why was this person, or what was the reason for this person their customer's application was denied? Now, this goes through your internal organization and explains why it was denied, because it was a inconsistent income across the last 3 quarters and a recent delinquency. And then we ask for, show me the model card. Now, the model card is essentially, it's like a nutritional label for models, where we look at accuracy, generalizability, model drift. And this is for the scrutiny perspective, which is, has the model got bias? What kind of bias came into the model? And it's an explanation of the entire model. What is the data it was trained on? What is the information privacy metrics? What is the confusion metrics? Typical model details that you will find out. And anyway, which your regulators are going to ask you for, which is explain why this person was denied. So you have this explainability that's coming in, and then you say, well, let's explain to me what was the decision that was actually taken, right? And this is a decision tree that the intelligent decisioning that was taken, the decision parts of different parts of the components. And if we were to actually zoom in, which is almost like it's like a Sankey diagram, it tells you what was the path chosen for the decision, right? It tells you these were all the paths that were chosen, and then it's almost like a decision tree that says, finally, we came to that particular scenario. Now, what the decisioning piece allows you to do is, that's where you can build out your agents. So the decisioning application or the decision platform helps you to build new decisions. So let me go and open a loan approved decision, and again, you see all of the components in there. These, in turn, can be deployed as agents. So each of these decisions, including the models in there, where you can actually go in and say, well, I want to look at add another decision to an existing tree. So I say I'm looking at next best offer agent, and then that next best offer agent actually builds up. Now, each of those agents have more information underlying them. So if you look at the next best offer, that's the agent that makes up the next best offer. So it's almost like a hierarchical approach where you can then sew in agents together, right? And an organization then has a agent repository which you're able to then sort of leverage as far as explanations are concerned. Once you're convinced of the agent and you look at the agent that's working fine, you go ahead and you say, okay, now I saw the agent, I understand what the agent is. Now I'm saying, show me the lineage, right? And this is where we look at it from a SAS differentiator. And here, what you saw just now was the intelligent decisioning, right? So, and you can trace the lineage back from intelligent decisioning down to your model manager, which is where your model was built. Your approval model or your credit risk model was built. To the next step, which is the model studio, where you built the model before deploying it into model manager. And it's just not SAS models. You could have open source models. You can have Python models. You can have R models. You can have Julia models. You can even have large language models. And we'll show you some of those in a later example. Finally, a very, very important context, which is the information catalog. Because again, the regulator is going to ask you down to what variables did you actually use to come up with that decision. And what the information catalog allows you to do is to go all the way back from the data preparation to the provenance of data, which is where did the data come in from in order to lead you to that particular decision. And a lot of your regulation that's going to come in from the RBI perspective will require this kind of lineage to be defined in pure and simple terms. So you can now, with all these agents, provide that auditing lineage capability back to the regulator. And at the same time, you can maintain a repository of agents that can be reused. So the advantage of reuse is essentially around productivity. So you can just reuse it. People don't have to build it from grounds up. And more importantly, you have a registry where you can sort of just pick out all of these agents and then deploy them. So if you look at the pillars on which we are looking at agentic AI, or from a decisioning perspective, it's around the three pillars of decisioning, human AI balance, and governance. Governance, is, like I said, is incredibly important for SAS, given our history of being in regulated industries and working with regulators globally in terms of ensuring we get that governance piece in there. So the key features, I would say, it includes AI agent orchestration. Bring any LLM. And this is a question we get in my last 2 weeks in India, I get this question quite a bit, which is, where does a large language model rise? Do I have to have a large language model that is available from traditional vendors like ChatGPT, etc., or could I have a large language model on-prem? So from SaaS perspective, you could bring any LLM, whether it's residing elsewhere or it's an in-house one. You can enrich with data and AI assets, right? Enriching the model is incredibly important, right? Because it's essentially a model has been trained on internet data. The question is, how do I train it on bank X's data? And that's what SaaS brings in, which is being able to train the model on your data. And within your bank, you have a large corpus of data, of contracts, of legal documentation, of, if you're in the insurance business, of the different portfolios that you have, right? So we can enrich that large language model with your own data to make it that much more richer or reflect your banking ethic and ethos. You're also looking at a scalable deployment. Scalable deployment essentially means the fact that you could deploy the agent anywhere, right? So my forecast or my crystal ball will say that eventually the market is going to become like one big bazaar, right? Where people will be wanting a loan. You would have agents that will go out and actually competing with other banks to fulfill that agent's request, right? So it's almost like that's the protocol. You heard about MCP, but the protocol that's really exciting that Google's brought out is something called A2A, which is an agent to agent, right? So what does that mean? So if you could take away from, because I know LLM is something that everybody knows right now. Historically, technologies have always come in from either corporations, governments, or from military, right? The internet is a military technology. This is the first time that a technology has been released like Gen AI that has been made available universally, right? My parents use it, right? Folks use it for tracking finances, right? So it's just so many uses around it. But today, we see this is where the future will go, which is eventually what will happen is you go to a ChatGPT or any of these programs and you ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm going to go to Sri Lanka for 3 days for a conference, and I have one free night. Can you give me some suggestions what to do and hotels that I can get? Today, ChatGPT goes in and says, well, yes, there's the Hilton, that's the W, and then there is the Sofitel in Colombo, and you can get it at these rates. And for an evening off, we suggest you take a drive or a walk on Colombo shore. That's what ChatGPT does today. With Model Context Protocol and agent-to-agent protocol, your agent will go ahead and make the bookings for you. It will make the financial transaction for you. It'll start remembering what hotels you really like. So that transaction will happen where Hilton, W, and Sofitel will say, or your agent will say, I've got a customer coming in for 3 days. Who's giving me the best rates, right? And then Hilton, Sofitel, and the W are going to say, these are my rates. Are they acceptable to you? And the agent will actually do a financial transaction on your behalf, right? And likewise, you can imagine the tourist agencies that offer you sightseeing tours, that will be a big bazaar. So why I'm saying it's so important, why agentic AI becomes so important is, if you remember when the internet came out, if you wanted to profit out of the internet, you needed to have an e-commerce site. It sounds such a long time back. An e-commerce site where you could do financial transactions. Similarly, in the next 2 to 3 years, what we'll find is if you want to do transactions using agentic, every organization would need to have an agent that works on their behalf, right? But is available in a giant marketplace, or maybe the Indian term is the bazaar, right? So that's where we see the market moving towards, and especially from a B2C kind of environment. But at the same time, of course, on the right-hand side, what you see around data protection, security, business guardrails. You mentioned we saw the human control as needed. And the most important thing, before you release these agents, is having transparency and explainability. right? So once again, we are absolutely excited by the fact that our agentic AI that we have, which is on the foundations of decisioning, human AI balance, and governance, provides that value and the desired business outcomes that you have or that you expect out of your agentic AI applications, right? Thank you once again. I know it's raining. I have a banking joke just to close out, which is, do you know the definition of a banker? It's a person who lends you an umbrella when its sun is shining and wants it back when it's raining, right? Which is kind of apt for today. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful remainder of the day and happy to talk to you guys. Thank you.